Hi, it's Mark, back with another Photoshop tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at select colour masks as opposed to luminosity masks, which you may have heard of. Now on the subject luminosity masks, I will link to a video there, which will tell you all about them, including some giveaways that you can have actions to make your own luminosity mask ranges. But stick with this one for the moment. So selection on colour is very easy to do. And it's the sort of thing you can do if you wanted to, for example, change some hues in the sky. So identifying a little bit of the colours in the sky, even though the blue in the sky and the blue in this rail are similar, you can easily differentiate between the two if you wanted to make that selection. Or alternatively, you might want a quick way of just doing a colour pop, such as here. Or in our third example, we're going to be looking at changing the colour of this girl's eyes. All these pictures are on my website in a bundle, in a zip file, ready for you to download. You don't have to sign in. It's just a straight download link. I've put it down below. If you want to go and get them and play along, that's great. I'll play some titles and we'll meet up on the other side of them and we'll roll our sleeves up and we'll get cracking. Glad to see you made it through to the other side of the titles. Here we are, we're going to do select colour. Let's throw ourselves into the tool, which is select and colour range. It remembers the previous things you've been doing with it, so allow me just while I reset this. Now you can start off with sample colours. Let's choose the reds, and lo and behold, it's made a selection. White is selected, black is not, and shades of grey closer to white are more selected, shades of grey closer to black are less selected. So it is kind of graded depending on the actual colour you choose here. So clearly there are reds in the red, go figure, but there's reds here and there's reds in here, and there's also reds in this colour over here, which is worth mentioning because that's why choosing strict colours is not always a good thing to do, especially when your pictures are probably not primary and you've got lots of graduated colours mixing into each other on a typical picture. So I prefer to use sample colours. But while we're here, by the way, on colour range, you can say, show me the highlights and show me the shadows. And you can actually use it to pick those out if you then want to go on and play with them. And that is starting to take you towards luminosity masks. I have got a whole video on luminosity masks when I learn how to say it, which I will link to above now, but you can check that out after this one. So let's go back to sample colours, which is probably more what we're going to be doing. And let's just choose this salmon at the end there. Now, having got this, you've got a slider called fuzziness. Fuzziness says at 0, I want you to be very precise. I clicked over here. The colour under my eyedropper is the colour I want you to find and no other colour. Incidentally, what was the colour under the eyedropper? Well, it's worth checking this, your sample size. If you were on point sample and you clicked, you don't really know what colour's underneath there. There could be a rogue black or slightly different coloured pixel, and that will make a wrong selection. So it's always worth on things like this having 5 by 5 or even 11 by 11. So 25 pixels roundabout where the end of my eyedropper is are sampled to produce the colour, and that colour is chosen. So with fuzziness, and I move it over, I'm saying, look, you don't have to be as generous. I'll let you leak into colours which are starting to creep into that to the far extreme, where you can see there are obviously elements to a greater or lesser degree of what was selected under my eyedropper over here in places. So fuzziness is good when you're doing adjustments in clouds and things which are a bit more organic, where you want a little bit of bleed. You don't want to have harsh borders with whatever selections you're actually doing. So that's one way of giving a harsh border. Another way, by the way, would be to be precise and on a mask, because whenever you put a mask on something, and I'll quickly just do this now, we'll put a mask on this. When you go into masks, you can always feather masks and change their density. So that would be another particular way you could actually do that. But let's stick with the dialog box, color range. Over here, we've got a selection. So I can now click OK, and that's transcribed into, you can see the marching ants around here, a selection. Two options here really. I can go Command or Control J, and that gives me a layer which contains what was in that selection. as you can see, and then I can do with it what I want. Or let's go back into select color range, and you can see it remembered our previous thing. Okay, or I can throw an adjustment layer on. Whenever you put an adjustment layer on your Photoshop document and you've already got a selection, the selection is inherited as a mask on that adjustment layer. So let's, for the sake of argument, click a hue saturation layer on. You can see how it has got that mask on it. So if I go to this and I desaturate it, bingo, I've taken all the colour out of there. So that is another way of doing it. I tend to use this because even if I do not use the saturation layer, it's given me a mask I can come back to. So let me show you how I might use that. Let's stick another layer on top and control and backspace just to fill it with white. Control and delete, sorry, fill it white. But then with this layer mask, if I choose my Option key or Alt key on a PC, I can drag it, switch that off. I've now got this mask which I can just move around onto other layers and groups or whatever. So I kind of do this to give myself a saved layer mask. It's just my particular way. There are other ways of doing this. This is just how I do it. Okay, right. So let's look at another aspect of this. So select color range. This is the final one before we do something more meaningful. And this time I'm going to introduce you to localized color clusters. So what are they? Well, let's pick our greens here. Now I click there. If I put the range up, you can see it selects all of that color that was in there. If I go here, all of the yellow, a little bit of bleed because there's a bit of yellow in here, all of the blues. But if I click, I make a point of clicking just right at the top here by the yellow, and now I bring the range down. Notice how it gets smaller and smaller to around where I chose, and you can actually see how it's actually faded. It has got a natural bleed on it. Why is that useful? You might be targeting a particular colour in, let's say, landscapes, something in the sky. So it's something over here in the blues, it's up in the sky. Typically the top half of a picture would have the sky in, but you've got the same blues down here. Well, using the range would allow you just to say, you know what, I want that colour, but I'm only interested in it in the top half, or I only want it interested in near to where I clicked. And if I use the plus icon, the eyedropper, I can then come along and say, yep. And you can see how now, using range, I can start to bring in colours and identify where I want them. I don't personally use that. Why not? Because I would just rather have the range on full, make the selection that I wanted, the colour pick I wanted, and then if I wanted to get rid of the rest, I would use a mask. And I would just brush out that. Anyway, that's what we're going to be playing with. That's how roughly the tool works. Let's click OK on that. And let's just move on to a more meaningful picture. And that's this one, which is the promenade leading up to St Mary's Lighthouse, which is around hidden behind the hill on the left. And I wanted to do something with the blue in the sky, and I picked this because I've got blue in the sky here, but I've also got blues in here. Have we bitten off more than we can chew here? Because those do look very similar hues, don't they, there and there. But let's give this a go. I'm going to make Command or Control J to make a copy of this before we start with anything. And we're going to go select color range. I'm going for sampled colors. I'm going to start with fuzziness right down. I'm not interested in localized color clusters, and I'm going to start with the hard part. I'm going to sample here and then get more fuzzy. Now, as you can see, if I get more fuzzy, you can see how that blue is inherent, breaking through all through the sky. It's over here where I want it, yes. It's in there where I want it, yes. But it's also in these, and I don't want it in there. I want it more just on the blue that you can see here. Okay, so I'm going to roll back that fuzziness and just keep an eye on my mask here. I'm getting there. As I say, I don't want to be prim and precise because look, that's neither use nor ornament. That selection there. So instantly, if you change this to image, it doesn't really help. It's just so you can see through the image and start picking on this as well, which I don't particularly prefer. So let's go back here and let's stick with that and roll our fuzziness back. Okay, now there is a limit how accurate you can actually be with this. So I'm going to go with that because they are the primary areas I wanted to get at, and deal with this separately. So how can we do that? So let's just click OK. And what I want to do is, you can see the selection there, but what you probably can't make out straight away is there's some selection down here and there. So I'm going to click on Control J for this particular version, and that will give me a layer which has got my blues on. So let's call it the Blues in Sky. And just to help you see what I'm doing here, I'm actually going to click here and put a solid colour adjustment layer above it. So we've got Adjustments, Solid Colour, and I'm going to put something where I can better see what's going on. Why not black? There we go. So here you can see the spillage that I'm not interested in. And if we switch those off, we can compare to where we wanted to. And I wanted to switch them off because I wanted to see what was down here. Remind myself down here, because that is that bit there. But I'm clearly not interested in these. So let's put a mask on this. B for my brush tool, D for default colours, X to get it to black, and I'm simply just going to paint these out. These ones I can be quite aggressive with, just paint out. And here I'm going to stop painting there, move my cursor to there, hold down my shift and get that to go through, and that gives me a bit of a line. I know there's a tube of the fence behind there, so I'm not really worried about being a harsh line, because it is a harsh line from the fence. Now I reckon with that mask there, I've probably got the areas I wanted. So let's do something with this layer, shall we? That's what we came here for. So I'm going to, in this instance, just to show you another tool, double click here to bring up my layer styles. And in my layer styles box, what I want to do is I want to put a color overlay on. Alright, so I click on color overlay. I'm going to leave the blend mode as normal at the moment, and I want to pick a different blue out for this particular bit of sky. I'm going to make it a little bit fundamentally different, not aesthetically pleasing. I just want to show you the principle here. So I'm going to make it a bit more of a turquoise and a darker colour, and I'm going to click OK. And you can see how it has actually done that. However, I wouldn't have it in a normal blend mode. I'd probably have it in overlay or soft light. So we'll go for one of those, and then I'll probably roll the opacity back. Now, in doing that, it's not that perceptible, but then less is more. But you can see if you look here, let's zoom in, and I'll switch it on and off, you can see how it's done its job. And it hasn't done nasty lines and anything, and it would have been very, very difficult to get that selection having not done that. So that is, in action, select colour masks, and it is as simple as that. And also we're throwing in a little bit of using colour overlay. Okay, another way of doing that might have been, let's go back to where we were, delete that and that, and go back into my select colour range, leave that selection in place, click OK, and do what we did before, which is using an adjustment layer. So I'm going to put a hue and saturation adjustment layer on, and I want to use this to take some of the saturation out to bring that blue out of the sky. But again, I've now got this, but it's a layer mask. So let's edit this layer mask. So you do that by holding down the Option or Alt key and clicking on the layer mask, and then you've got your layer mask only on display. Make my brush a little bit bigger, B for brush tool, make it a little bit bigger with my right hand bracket key, and then D for default colours, X to get black as my foreground colour, and we're back to where we actually were. before. Just wiping this out. Now, you don't have to be that precise in Photoshop. After many videos where I've shown you, you can be a bit more slapdash. And this is one. When you're dealing with subtle, not very strong blends, you can get away with being a bit more gruff with how you're doing it. And people will not notice, I promise you this. There you go. So now edit that, just click back on the adjustment layer, and if we switch it off and on, you can see just some of the saturation coming out again, looking here, but the tubes on the posts are okay. All right, let's move on to another one. So on this next one, we have got, oh yes, this was taken down Newcastle Quayside a few years back. I didn't expect it to be there. Turned the corner and these fantastic scooters were there. So when I was looking for some ideal pictures today, which were very rich with different colours, I thought, well, that's quite a vibrant picture, so we'll use this one. And so what we're going to do is, I don't know about you, I've just got to pick all these reds. So, and in doing so, I'll show you a quick colour pop. So let's make a Control or Command J, take a copy of the background layer. Let's go select colour range. And when we're in our colour range, let's choose sample colours, and I'm choosing the plus eyedropper here because there's a few different ones. I want to start with that one. Wow, that's an awful lot of colour. Now what happened there, that's probably because I picked a bit of the glow in the top of the seat, which was more the white. So I'm going to just click on that one instead and click right in the seat to make sure I get that red. Now I'll come over to the plus, and I want to just click some more bits in here. Trying to avoid the highlights, because if I click a highlight, it's going to do what it did before. And I think I will fuzziness. Yeah, I think I'll do that. I think I'll stick with that because I'm quite happy with that. And you see why what we're going to do this time. So here, click OK. So I've got my selection. So this time what I want to do is I'm going to use an adjustment layer, which is hue and saturation. And remember what we said, it inherits the selection. And I'm going to take all of the colour out of that. But then I'm going to click on there and go Control I and invert it. And there you have it, instant colour pop. But I'm not interested in these extra ones, but you know what, we've got a layer here. So all I need to do is B for my brush tool, D for colours. I want white this time, because that is going to be used just to paint out these ones I don't particularly want hanging around in the background. And there's a way of doing, oops, we've got a little bit in there, I don't want that as well. There's a quick way of doing a colour pop. Finally for this one, we're going to have a look at this picture. But before we do, now's an ideal time to say, if you like what I'm doing with these videos, please consider giving this a thumbs up. If you want to give it a thumbs down, that's your prerogative, but please tell me why, so that I can come away a bit richer and learn a bit more and understand what I may need to improve on myself in doing these. And while you're deciding on a thumbs up and thumbs down, while you're being Pontius Pilate, there's a little button called subscribe. It'd be really useful if you could click on that, because you get notified of new content when I put it up, and it helps me out to grow this channel. There you go, plugs over, let's crack on. Loved this picture. This is actually a stock picture, free stock picture from Aditya Golamundi. It's in the bundle. It came from Unsplash, and whenever you use the pictures in Unsplash, you have to give credit to the person who took the picture, who owns the picture, and I just have, and they are free to use. So knock your socks off with this one. What I want to do here, though, is I'm going to show you how you can use this to change the colour of her eyes. Okay, hence zooming in. Now for those of you who are screaming at the screen now saying, but there's lots of ways you can alter doing someone's eyes and changing the colour. Yes, they are. But this particular one is about select colour with masks. So that's why we are going to use that this time. So Control or Command J to make a copy of our background layer. Okay, and then we want to go select colour range. And I want to go and sample the colour in her eye. and I'm going to click on the plus icon, and I'm ignoring all this. I'm not interested in all that shenanigans there. I just want to make sure I get selection in her eye so that it's quite defined. Now I might have a little bit of an issue here looking at that, so it's hard to see on this one, but I'm going to go with this just for now. So I'm going to click OK. So I've got the colour here in the irises that I'm particularly interested in, and I will now choose a solid colour adjustment layer, and I want to go for more of a hazel brown, something like that. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to put it into soft light. I'm just looking at the centre of the eyes here, on and off on those. As you can see though, we have actually put a cast over other areas of the face, which incidentally I think works. I think that's a freak of Photoshop, that I actually prefer the picture with it's gone into skin tones, but I just wanted to do the eyes. So I'm actually going to copy that, because I might come back to that to play myself later, because I rather liked how that effect was. We'll come back to this mask, B for my brush tool, D for default colours, X to get it to black, make this a bit bigger, and I'm just going to brush everything out around where I didn't want it. Doodly-doo, do-do-do-dum. There we go, job's good. Now the other thing about doing this was the other point I wanted to make, and my final point on this, off and on, my final point on this is that this is really easy to do. It's just a little bit methodical. It's not rocket science. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I've rambled on a little bit more than normal, but I am now going to go and play with this particular picture. And with that, I will leave it there. So, goodbye.